Saturday, October 19th, 2002. Nebraska 21, Oklahoma State 24. Once again, this time in an uncharacteristic losing fashion, we didn't get blown out. We could have won this game easily, but too many little things piled up to weigh us down in the end. We had the chance to kick 2 field goals, both over 45 yards. Josh was kicking great today, and I have no doubt he could have made both of them, but in the end, we didn't get the chance to do that. Both teams got off to a slow start, leaving the first quarter scoreless. Oklahoma State started the scoring with a field goal, which we answered with a touchdown, but Oklahoma State proved to be too consistent and steady to be slowed down by our blackshirts. They kept putting points up, and our offense kept getting stopped midway down the field. Kyle Larson had another tough day statistically, but only because we kept punting from the midfield. He hasn't really been able to show off his amazing leg yet, but people will know it when he does. The temperature was fairly cool, especially when I was standing on the sideline waiting for the offense to score so I can get out there. I had to put on one of those big jackets after halftime just to keep my arms warm and ready. A light drizzle fell most of the day, making it that much more uncomfortable. The cold made it a little tougher to make good snaps, but we made all the extra points, so I can at least be happy with my performance. The stadium in Oklahoma State has a very thin sideline area between the field and the stands, similar to Colorado. However, these fans were much better than Colorado's. They didn't try to degrade us constantly, just some of the time, and the things they said made us laugh because they obviously had a much smaller vocabulary than the Colorado fans. In the end, the fans got their win and celebrated by bringing down the goalposts. We just made our way back to the locker room, past Husker fans who offered us both optimistic support and disgraced looks. A true fan stands by the team, especially when they're down. Fans who chastise the team aren't really fans, they're just along for the ride. We picked up $10 on the plane ride in, and on the way out of the stadium we had KFC meals waiting for us. Monday, October 21st, 2002. The theme of today's meeting seemed to be, where do we go from here? Coach Solich told us that we have to keep our heads up and remain focused on playing one game at a time. Our goal of a national championship is gone. Our goal of a conference championship is gone. Our 9-win season is in jeopardy. A winning season is in jeopardy. Even a bowl trip is in jeopardy. From what I've heard, either the Arizona State game, because it was a preseason game, or the McNeese State, since they are a Division I AA school, will not count for the number of wins we need to be eligible for a bowl. This means that we'll have to win 2 more games at least. Kansas seems like the only guaranteed win. Texas, Kansas State, and Colorado are all ranked, and Texas A&M is one of the toughest places to play in college football. If we could just win our home games, that would do wonderful things for us. This is a very shaky time. None of the players or coaches have been through anything like this, and I'm not really sure we know how to react. Tuesday, October 22nd, 2002. My ankle still hurts. Even after getting a cortisone shot in it last Thursday night, it's still sore, although it's much better. Late in practice, someone was thrown into the back of my calf, causing my ankle to shift forward. The pain went away quickly, but a new area in the front of my ankle is sore now. This sucks. Wednesday, October 23rd, 2002. I found out today that I've been listed along with 13 other guys as Verizon COSIDA Academic All-American candidates. This is given to anyone who has enough playing time and a 3.2 GPA. Only one of us will end up with the award, but I think 2 or 3 guys have a very good chance. The other guys are Philip Bland, Chad Buller, Judd Davies, Troy Hassebrook, Trevor Johnson, Chris Kelsey, Chad Sievers, Phil Peets, Pat Ricketts, Kyle Ringenberg, Barrett Rude, Mike Stuntz, and Aaron Turpening. After practice today, I was told that the Sports Information Office wants to do a feature article on me for an upcoming home game program. This should be exciting, but I have no idea what to talk about because I know I'm supposed to make it sound positive. Saturday, October 26th, 2002. Nebraska 38, Texas A&M 31. This was easily the most exciting game I've been a part of in my time here. We started off strong, scoring on our first drive. It seemed almost too easy. The momentum quickly switched over to A&M when they blocked one of our punts and took it in for a touchdown. On our next drive, Jamal pitched the ball right through Darren Dietrich's hands and A&M recovered the fumble and soon scored again. We were able to tie the game up with a touchdown from David Horn, but A&M found the end zone again with a short pass just a few seconds before halftime. We came out of the locker room hungry for a win and knowing we could get it. A&M added a field goal in their first drive of the second half, however, and then returned a fumble for 66 yards and a touchdown on our first possession of the half to make it 14-31. It looked like we were completely out of it. We needed big plays by the defense, and our offense... come on. All right. We needed big plays by the defense and scores on all of our remaining offensive drives to get the win. That's exactly what we did. I backed David Horn and Darren Diedrich lit up the field, along with some great runs by quarterback Jamal Lord, to get us 3 straight touchdowns. Our last drive ended with a 42-yard field goal. Defensively, we stalled them on their first 2 drives, and then Pat Ricketts and Philip Bland came up with big interceptions. The last one by Bland was in their end zone and took away all chance they had for a comeback. Our fans, which filled 2 sections at the tips of the Horseshoe Stadium, went crazy after the win. We had not only caused an upset, but we came back from a huge deficit to pull off a victory on the road and in one of the most intimidating venues in the nation, and our fans loved it. Many of them tried to storm the field after the win, but the A&M security, which was just their military guys, stopped them. A couple of them pulled out their billy clubs and even used them on a few of our fans. I think that was very uncalled for, and so did Nate Coulterman, who was right there when one of our fans got hit. Nate scared the shit out of that security guy. The Texas A&M fans were really quite amazing. Their collection of cheers and chants, along with their choreographed motions, were very impressive. One of the most awe-inspiring sights was when they all put their arm over the person next to them, overlapped their legs, and then swayed in unison. It was almost nauseating to watch this huge wall of people move, but it was still very exciting to see. Their fans were also very well behaved. I don't remember hearing one negative thing uttered from them. That could be because of the distance between all of us and them, or because most of the people closest to us were their band. Their band was also very amazing. I could have stood out there all day and listened to them play, and I thought about doing just that as I was stretching during warm-ups. I wish I could have seen their halftime show. With this win, we now have new life for the rest of the season. We know we can pull off a come-from-behind win, we know we can win as underdogs, and we know we can win on the road. If we win the rest of our games, we could be in the Big 12 championship game, and if we win that, we would automatically be in a BCS bowl game. Even after losing 3 games this season, I think this year has been the most beneficial for the team as a whole. In this game, we learned how to battle for everything. We gave them 21 points, and were still able to get the win. We've learned how to battle back, something that wasn't there a year ago, because we never had to do it. The Nebraska teams of the past came out strong and dominated for 4 quarters. When we got down early, it was such a shock that we didn't know what to do. Now, when we're down, we know we still have a chance. We've also become a more unified team. The defense plays for the offense, and vice versa. Special teams works hard for both sides. We were placated with Eric Crouch being on the team. We played off of him, and he led us to victories. Now the leaders are less prominent, forcing the whole team to step up a notch and fill that void. Today marked the beginning of a new mentality for Nebraska football. A new mentality that will adapt to the changes and still produce great teams. On the flight home, we were issued $10, and before we left the stadium, we also received a new travel t-shirt because a lot of the guys haven't been wearing them when they should. Wednesday, October 30th, 2002. Coach Solich is cracking down by implementing a zero-tolerance policy involving anything in a game or in a practice that would be penalized. After Josh Davis punched one of the Texas A&M guys after a late kickoff, and was very lucky not to get thrown out of the game, Coach Solich apparently had enough of the penalties and the lack of discipline that we were displaying to the country. From now on, every penalty committed in the game or in practice we'll have to do extra running for. The more severe the penalty, the more severe the punishment. This also includes getting in fights during practice. Nate Coulterman even got extra running for pushing one of the Texas A&M guys hard as the play was winding down. He didn't get flagged for it in the game, but Coach Solich thought he deserved it anyways. It has been a very rainy October so far, but it hasn't gotten too cold. It's still in the high 30s and 40s, but we're hoping the cold weather will put a damper on Texas this weekend. We picked up black stocking caps tonight to help us combat the cold, but they're too small and don't even cover my ears. Saturday, November 2nd, 2002. Nebraska 24, Texas 27. Former head coach Tom Osborne spoke to us before the game. He talked about the traditions here at Nebraska, the coaching philosophy, the coaching staff, and the work ethic of a power football team, and how they have remained unchanged the past couple decades. He's an excellent speaker and makes very good points, and he left us all with a renewed sense of pride in this team and the program. The game started off with all of us in a very clear and determined frame of mind. We came out strong and put up a field goal on our first drive. Texas later answered with a field goal of their own. Another field goal by Texas early in the second half was the last score before halftime. We could have taken the lead with 2 more field goals, but mistakes were made. On the first one, we all rushed out there with 1:50 left on the clock, and Coach Solich told Steve Krewald, who told Joe Chrisman, the holder, that we should eat some time off the clock. This message wasn't relayed to the rest of us, and I figured we were just going to go out and follow our normal rhythm of getting on the ball and getting the kickoff soon. I was down over the ball and ready, and I looked back and saw Joe waiting. I didn't know what he was waiting for, so instead of mentally focusing myself to get the snap done, I started wondering what's taking so long. When Joe finally called for the snap, I wasn't prepared. The snap was high and slow, and Joe fell on it for a 7-yard loss. There is no one person who can get the blame for this. In the end, we should have stayed in the huddle longer and then gotten on the ball. Also, being upside down over the ball for that long is hard enough, especially when I'm supposed to throw the football accurately 7 yards between my legs. I was getting a head rush and pretty much knew as soon as I was about to snap it that it wasn't going to be my best snap. Then, at the end of the half, we had another chance to tie it up. This time, Joe called for the ball, and I snapped it right away because I wasn't sure how much time was left. And Josh was looking at the clock just as the ball was snapped. When he looked back, the ball was already down, and it was too late. He kicked it, but it was cleanly blocked by a Texas guy coming off the left side, and the guy actually had to slow down, otherwise he would have overrun the block. This is the first kick Josh has had blocked all year. All of this really hurt going into halftime. Josh, Joe, and I left the locker room early during halftime and got onto the field as soon as the band got off. We took some more kicks and got back into our normal rhythm and felt very good as the game got underway again. The second half started off really well, with both teams scoring on their first drives. Texas scored again late in the third quarter, but we answered with authority early in the fourth with a 60-yard touchdown grab by Matt Harrion. The game became a complete dogfight with both sides playing very well. Chris Sims of Texas was putting up impressive passing yards and getting first down after first down, and our quarterback Jamal Lord was running the ball like he was going against the scout team. Texas scored late in the fourth, making the score 27-17. With 3.5 minutes left, we knew we had to score quickly, stop them on the subsequent possession, and then score quickly again. In less than a minute, Darren Diedrich took it in for a touchdown. We were then able to stop them on defense. They punted, and DeJuan Gross almost broke his most crucial return of the year, but got stopped at the 16-yard line. With 34 seconds left and 16 yards to go, Jamal tried to run but got nowhere. After a quick spike, Coach Solich sent in a pass play to go for the win instead of a tie. If the pass was caught, it would be a touchdown, and if it was dropped or incomplete, we would kick a field goal. The worst possible thing would be for the ball to be intercepted. Well, the worst thing happened. All the excitement in the crowd and on the sidelines was just shut off like someone pulled the plug. Texas ran out the last 10 seconds and then triumphantly took the field to celebrate their win. I grabbed my gloves and headed into the locker room, avoiding eye contact with everyone since my face was now red and my eyes were tearing over. I got into the locker room and cried quietly. I took it very hard because, with the points that we could have had off my bad snap, we could have tied the game. Also, I wasn't sure if Coach Solich had lost faith in the field goal team because he decided to go for the win instead of the tie. There were a lot of things that could have turned this game around quickly. We had a pair of 4th and 1s that we didn't convert. There was a missed catch that was deflected and intercepted. There was a missed interception that was tipped by us and caught by a Texas receiver who turned it into a 40-yard gain, and the list goes on. I guess we just made one too many errors. Occam's razor states that when all things are equal, the simplest answer tends to be the right one. The simplest answer was to go for the field goal and try our best in overtime, which is why I took this so hard. In all, it's fairly amazing that the score was what it was. Chris Sims threw for a career-high 419 yards and gained 27 first downs. Usually when a team does that, they score more than 27 points. This is positive for our defense, which has sputtered this year. Jamal Lord had another career night, running for a new record of 234 yards. In all, this was the most exciting game I've ever played in. I know that even though we lost, our fans are still proud of us for coming so close to beating a team ranked in the top 10 in the nation, especially since we are still unranked. It's a loss that gives us a lot of crucial things to work on in our future, but it also gives us even more confidence as we finish out our schedule and still hunt for a bowl game bid, a winning season, and a 9-win season. Wednesday, November 6th, 2002. Coach Tenniper weighed us today for the first time in a while. Everyone seemed to be right where they were before, although Dan Waldrop is again in the 340-pound range, when the coaches want him at 320. The biggest surprise of the day was when Jamail Phillips got on the scale, and it read 379.8. He had his street clothes on and shoes, but this means he gained 20 pounds in the past couple of weeks. He's a huge kid. He's got a belly, but he doesn't look too fat. He's just enormous. He moves well and has great strength, but I'm sure the coaches will be all over him about keeping his weight down and eating better. I'm sure this made Dan Waldrop happy, though. Now the coaches will be on Jamail's case. Jamail is officially the largest Husker football player ever, and he's just a true freshman. Thursday, November 7th, 2002. Tight end Phil Peets amazed everyone today. He's the one guy you can depend on to do the right thing and keep everyone else in line, while also being one of the hardest workers on the team. However, today he came out to practice wearing a black wig, looking more than ever like the unfrozen caveman lawyer. He even wore it under his helmet, which looked hilarious with all the long hair spilling out of the back. I heard that when the coaches saw him, they all laughed their asses off, especially Coach Solich. He wore it the entire practice. Saturday, November 9th, 2002. Nebraska 45, Kansas 7. This wasn't a surprise to anyone, but it's nice to have a win like this after the last few games. Kansas showed up for its annual ass-kicking and didn't disappoint yet another sold-out crowd. We opened up the running game and ran all over them all day. In the end, we totaled 352 yards on the ground, adding more yards to put us back into contention for the national running title. Darren Diedrich and David Horn both had over 100 yards rushing, although David's average was 13.6 yards per carry, much higher than Darren's 8.9. Horn is really proving that he will be a huge part of our offense in the future, and I bet the coaches can't wait to see what he can do after an off-season in the weight room. Today, Jamal Lord became the third Husker and the 18th player in NCAA history to pass and rush for 1,000 yards each in a season. This is an incredible tribute to him, and I'm sure it was a shock to most of our fans, who, like me, didn't realize that he's been that good all year. He's not a flashy player, and the press doesn't get much from him when he's interviewed, but he has very quietly been racking up these statistics. We kicked Kansas all over the field all game long. A season record 111 guys got into the game. With this win, we guaranteed our bowl game bid. I should have been happy, but late in the game, when it was already put away, Coach Young asked over his headset to whoever was listening, probably Coach Tenniper, if they wanted to go with me at center for the last minutes of the game. I never heard the answer, but I was never told to go in for a series, so I can guess what the answer was. I took all the snaps for the extra points and field goal, but I really thought I was going to get some center time as well. If there was any game I should have gotten in this year, this should have been it. It just pisses me off that I spend all week being a center in practice, but come game time, I'm just a short snapper. What the hell am I wasting my time for in practice when I don't even play? I told Josh Brown that he needs to talk to Coach Young and see if I can specialize and just long snap in practice all day. He understood and laughed. The best thing that happened today was that my article was in the game program. It was a very well-written article and said many nice things about me. The most surprising thing is that Coach Young said a very nice thing about me and my commitment to the community. Just when I think I really can't stand a guy, he goes and does something like that and totally redeems himself. Friday, November 15th, 2002. We left Lincoln at 1:30 today on buses to Manhattan, Kansas. The offensive and defensive linemen shared one of the big coach buses, so there was plenty of room to spread out. We watched 2 movies on the way down and also stopped in Marysville for a quick snack of Subway sandwiches. When we got into Manhattan, we stopped at the stadium and had our quick walkthrough. Kansas State Stadium could look nice, but it's in too many odd pieces. It looks like they're still trying to build the whole stadium and just waiting for the money. We then headed to the hotel, checked in, had dinner, and then went to another movie. In all, we saw 3 movies today: Mr. Deeds, Spider-Man, and I Spy. We picked up our $10 for the weekend before the movie. Bed check was early tonight at 10:15, but I was tired enough that it didn't matter. The team seems pretty confident about tomorrow. We're looking to get 9 wins this season, even though this hasn't been brought up by the coaches at any point recently. I think their desire to follow our goal of playing 1 game at a time makes them hold back from mentioning anything about the 9 wins. We've got a bowl trip locked up. Now we're just working hard to make sure that it's a fairly respectable bowl. Saturday, November 16th, 2002. Nebraska 13, Kansas State 49. Kansas State is ranked as the number 11 team in the nation on both polls, and they proved this tonight. They shut us down in all three areas of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. There was very little we could do right. At the end, we had less than 100 yards rushing for the second time this season. Kansas State walked away after putting up more points on us than they have ever done before, and my class of seniors leaves this field without knowing what it's like to win at Kansas State. There were some good points about the game, however. Matt Herring continued to prove that he can be a deep threat tight end by catching a 28-yard pass. He only has 4 catches of the season so far, but he already has totaled 165 yards as a true freshman. Out of all of his catches, this one today is the shortest so far. Josh Brown had an impressive day, knocking every kickoff out of the end zone and making 2 of his 3 field goal attempts. The one he missed hit one of the uprights. Rush end Chris Kelsey came back for the first time in 5 weeks after hurting his hamstring and proved that he is a dominating force on the defense. He chased down the quarterback from the backside of plays, showed great agility, and overpowered the offensive linemen and tight ends all game long. Quarterback Jamal Lord added a little more to his statistics column today by gaining a few yards, most of which came on a very impressive pass play which he scrambled out of, was almost knocked down, and then took it the other way for a touchdown after a very nice downfield block by one of our receivers. He may not have Crouch's speed, but he makes up for it by being so incredibly agile and with his ability to shed tacklers. There were numerous bad points of this game as well. One was that our offense got overpowered by their defense. Their defensive line played the run very well, and our offensive line looked pretty bad all around. They were also able to rush the passes fairly easily and sack Jamal 5 times. The defense also gave us some huge plays, including a 91-yard dash by quarterback L. Roberson. Finally, the special teams didn't do much by having a punt blocked and recovered for a touchdown. It seemed like the refs had it out for us today. Their guys held all day long and weren't called for it. The Kansas State fans were also very rude, especially their students. They yelled a variety of things at us all game long, letting us know that we were about to have our 5th loss and picking on individuals for the performance. When we recovered one of their fumbles and it was still a relatively close game, I motioned to the crowd to bring it on. Apparently someone took my challenge and chucked a water bottle at me from the stands. It missed by 2 feet. Finally, their announcer was very biased and sounded very demeaning when we were on offense or when our defense was getting pushed down the field. This just reaffirms my belief that our announcer at Nebraska is one of the best in the country, along with our fans, because he sticks to the facts of the game and also makes no inflection to indicate which side he's on. On the ride home, we watched yet another movie, The Sum of All Fears, but I didn't care to watch it. I was more interested in the 2 liters of Long Island iced tea that I made for this trip, along with the whiskey and Coke that another guy brought. We weren't drunk by the time we got back to Lincoln, but we sure felt better than when we left Manhattan. Now, I want to take a little time out here to talk about this. The papers right away, when the book first came out, pointed to this little scene here and blew it up, and it was picked up by other places too, and it just grew into this thing about the Nebraska party bus on the way back from K-State. And look, it was just me and one of the guys, as far as I know. I mean, anybody else could have done anything they wanted to. We're on a dark bus by ourselves, basically, with only the guys around us, and we have a whole bench to ourselves, and the bus is relatively empty. And it's nighttime. We're driving 2.5 hours back from Manhattan, Kansas. And, top it off, we had every intention of going out that night anyways, hopefully to celebrate a win, and we knew we were going to be getting into Lincoln around midnight, 12:30, 1 o'clock, so we're just going to get a jump start on the partying and do a little celebration in the bus. It turned out that we didn't win, and so it wasn't much of a celebration, but, we still made the most of it. So, this isn't that outlandish, to me. This is just something that I'm sure it wasn't the first time. I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't doubt that it wasn't the first time. And it wasn't that big of a deal. It would have been a much bigger deal had we been drinking before the game. To do this on the way back, I mean, who cares? We're 21 years old, and it's not like we were doing drugs and picking up hookers on our way back from the game. That would have been newsworthy. Monday, November 18th, 2002. We didn't have practice today. Instead, we just had meetings at 3:30 to watch film and go over some notes about the game. There was no offensive lineman of the game this time, which means Coach Tenniper thought no one was worthy of the honor. We graded out lower than all of our previous games, and on film it looked like we couldn't even move them or slow them down at all. It looked terrible. The coolest thing I saw on the film was during the last field goal, which we missed. Kansas State had a middle jump to try to block the kick. I heard them say this as they lined up, so I was ready when the two guys started to jump the middle. As soon as they jumped, I stuck my arms out and ran forward, catching both of them in the waist and thigh pads, flipping one of them over and holding the other one from getting a good jump. It looked pretty good on film, but we only brushed by it quickly so I didn't get a savor it. Wednesday, November 20th, 2002. We went half pads yesterday and full pads today. We're supposed to go full pads tomorrow as well. I don't understand why we're doing all this. This is an off week. Shouldn't we be trying to fine-tune things instead of getting worn down instead? We know that we have to prepare really well to play Colorado, but I don't understand the logic of going in pads 3 days in a row on an off week. All of my classes are starting to kick into high gear right now, and this has really put the restraints on the amount of sleep I'm getting. My effectiveness in practice has been compromised, but I'm not going to play anyway, so why worry about it? I've also lost a bit of weight in the past couple of weeks. I'm steadily dropping 1 or 2 pounds each week without even trying, and I'm now on the brink of being in the 270s for the first time since my freshman year. The coaches haven't said anything, so I'm not going to worry about it. Tuesday, November 26, 2002. The media found out today that Josh Brown was picked up for a DUI this past weekend in Omaha. This is very disturbing news for Josh and the rest of the team. Coach Solich announced at the end of practice that Josh will have to sit out for the Colorado game according to the team rules. This is definitely not the way Josh wanted to finish his senior year at home, so I'm sure he's very disappointed in himself. This now means that Dale Endorf, who joined the team midway through the season, will be the starting place kicker for the game. He joined the team late because Sandro DeAngelis went out with a broken toe. I'm sure he's feeling a lot of pressure. I'm confident he can get the job done, but it will be a good test for his nerves. Near the end of the practice, I once again witnessed a horrific injury. Freshman guard Jermaine Leslie was pulling to the right when he got caught in a group of guys and his left ankle buckled. But not only did it buckle, it dislocated and was nearly up on the side of his leg. It was bent at a 90-degree angle out the side. It looked very similar to Tim Green's knee a few years back. They carted him off for x-rays to see if anything was broken. We later learned that he broke one of his leg bones in 5 or 6 places and had to have plates and screws attached throughout his leg. One of my biggest fears right now is something like that happening to me in these last few weeks. I just want to get out of here with no serious injuries and no surgeries. We should know which bowl game we will go to by this weekend. Coach Solich has been talking with the other Big 12 coaches and the bowl committees to help figure it out. It's complicated since 9 of the 12 teams in the Big 12 are bowl eligible this year. To have 3/4 of your conference going to a bowl game certainly says something about the strength of our conference. The Big 12 is definitely the strongest group in the nation. Wednesday, November 27th, 2002. There is no school today because of Thanksgiving break. Because of this, I picked up $164 at brunch this morning. It makes the whole weekend worthwhile when I can walk away with a full wallet. Friday, November 29th, 2002. Nebraska 13, Colorado 28. We looked very good at the start of this game. We had a good drive going on our first possession, which was not very typical for this season, but that ended shortly after it started and we had to punt. Our next possession was intercepted, followed by another punt. In the meantime, Colorado scored on a 40-yard pass, giving them the lead. We answered this with our first drive of the second quarter by throwing an 80-yard bomb to Matt Harrion, who broke away from the defender and jetted all the way to the end zone. Once again, he proved that he is a deep threat. Dale Endorf, who was named the starting place kicker due to Josh Brown's suspension, made the extra point easily and then raced back to the sideline. I turned around after seeing the ball go through, expecting to see Joe and Dale there, but Dale was already near the sideline, and Joe was just standing there looking like he was wondering where Dale went. I congratulated Joe as usual, and then waited for Dale to get done with the ensuing kickoff to congratulate him. He got a big break on the kickoff because Colorado drew a flag on the extra point that allowed him to kick from the 50-yard line. He easily kicked it out of the end zone and then raced back to the sidelines. I've never seen anyone so proud and beaming with excitement as Dale was at that moment. I congratulated him, and he did the same to me, and I told him next time we want to congratulate him on the field, so he should stay out there for a little while. He understood, but he was still on such a high that I wasn't sure if I got through. At the end of the half, Dale proved himself with a 33-yard field goal, his first ever field goal at Nebraska. He made it through easily and was about to run back to the sideline when he remembered that we want to congratulate him on the field this time. Nate Coulterman picked him up with a big bear hug. We entered the locker room with a 10-7 lead. When we came out, we stopped Colorado on their first drive and recovered a fumble deep in their territory. It looked like we had a guaranteed score, but Richie Incognito spoiled this when he retaliated against a Colorado player right in front of a ref. While the flag was deserved, the Colorado player should have received one too for trying to push Richie backward over a pile of guys, but the ref didn't see it. We were then forced to try a 49-yard field goal. None of us was sure Dale would be able to do it, but we went out there and got ready to do our best. When Josh Brown is kicking, Josh usually marks off the yardage and Joe sets up to get ready to take the snap. Dale didn't do this, so Joe just set up where he thought he was 7 yards deep. He accidentally set up 1 yard too deep, which made my snap a little low when it got to him, but Joe made a good hold and Dale made a great kick, putting us at a more comfortable lead of 13-7. This didn't last long, though. Colorado's next two possessions resulted in touchdowns, and they added another one later in the game as well. After our last field goal, we weren't able to do anything else on offense at all, and our defense looked just as bad. We now fall to 7-6, and there is no chance of a 9-win season. That's just one more record to fall by the wayside this turbulent year. I didn't really care to listen to what the coaches said after the game. I just wanted to change and get out of there. On somewhat of a bright side, today was senior day. There was a video played while we were warming up, with all the seniors talking about our memories and our feelings. It was all put together pretty well, but my part was hard to hear because my voice is lower than a lot of the guys. Even I had a hard time understanding what I said, but it was something about the pride I take being here in this program because we have always operated at a high level of class and respect. The best part of the day was when the seniors were introduced individually and ran out onto the field one last time. I jumped the gun a little bit and started to run out before they had announced my name, but it didn't look too bad. I guess that was an unconscious gesture that meant that I can't wait to get this over with. Before running out, I shared an awkward hug with Coach Solich. It was awkward because I didn't know if I should hug him or shake his hand. I guess he was thinking the same thing, and we kind of split the difference on the two. I said, "Thanks for everything, Coach," and he thanked me as well. I then took off, waving to the fans as I went. It was a good feeling to run out by myself and have 78,000 people watching me, although I'm sure quite a few were just clapping to be nice and had no clue who I was. Monday, December 2nd, 2002. After a whole weekend of media speculation, Coach Solich brought us in from meetings and informed us that he has made some coaching changes. He had a very stern demeanor as he told us all of this, and it was apparently a very emotionally taxing weekend for him. It seemed that it was now just as tough to face us as a team and tell us. He informed us that coaches Craig Bohl, George Darlington, and Nelson Barnes would not be with us anymore, and that he would relinquish the offensive coordinator job. He said that he has been in contact with a few people to fill the spots, but wants to leave all the names out of the discussions right now so that this process can go smoothly without those people getting a lot of pressure from the press. Coach Solich wanted us to know that if we had any questions, he will be available at any time for anyone who wishes to speak with him. He also said that he was going to have a press release about this later in the day, but he was not going to hold a press conference. This information was not really a surprise, except for defensive ends coach Nelson Barnes getting fired. I overheard Rush end Chris Kelsey say later that he saw it coming. I guess he would know. Coach Barnes hasn't produced anything over the past 5 years, and has failed to bring in outstanding recruits. Coach Darlington, the defensive backs coach, was another slight surprise, but he has been here for 30 years, and it's probably time for some new blood. Also, our pass defense is ranked in the middle of the whole NCAA this year, and was really never too good in the past anyways. As the last remaining member of Tom Osborne's defensive staff, I know he took great pride in his job, and it meant a lot to him. I later heard that Coach Solich first asked him to retire. When Darlington refused, Solich fired him, and Darlington took it very hard. He allegedly threw a bit of a tantrum in the office, but that's just a rumor. The media had a field day with all of this, and it was the top story on all the news channels. I didn't care to watch any of it. I knew what happened, and the news programs wouldn't tell me anything more than I already knew. Tuesday, December 3rd, 2002. Just as the news about all the coaching changes was sinking into the public psyche, more shocking news hit. Bill Byrne, our athletic director for the past 10 years, is leaving for Texas A&M. Apparently this news broke in Texas earlier today. Byrne had wanted to have a private discussion with all the coaches and athletes in the program to let us know first, so we could ask him any pertinent questions, but he wasn't able to do this. This has got to be one of the strangest weeks in the history of the University of Nebraska sports. I know that this is one of the most emotional weeks for our coaches. All of this has caused a lot of confusion on the team and has raised a lot of questions. Some guys don't know if they want to stay around here for the rest of their college careers. Other guys, who are almost done, have lost all remaining motivation. Also, Coach Jeff Jamrog is the only defensive coach still on the team, so a lot of defensive guys have lost their leadership and don't know what to do. Coach Solich has told us that we will have new coaches for the bowl game, but this will be very tough for the team as well as those new coaches. They will have to come in with only about 2 weeks to learn our system, get to know our players, and then try to be effective. All of this happening so close together really makes for an interesting theory. What if Coach Solich, knowing Bill Byrne would be leaving soon, decided to make these changes now instead of after the season just to show the new athletic director coming in, whoever that may be, that he has full control of the team and is willing to do anything to make it better, even fire coaches? Perhaps he's worried that a new AD will fire him, so he's trying to show that he's taking care of the problem himself. He also may want to show recruits the same thing, and bring new coaches in so recruits can meet them. I really hope all of this doesn't affect recruiting. The past couple of years haven't been very stellar for recruiting, but we have some promising candidates for this coming year that could really give us a boost. We have to lift 4 times this week with Wednesday as a rest day, but we did a little running today. At 3:30 we met in the Cook and did our abbreviated running workout just to get us moving and keep our conditioning. At the end, Chris Kelsey spoke to all of us about coming together as a team right now and not letting anything tear us apart. To symbolize this, we did our sit-ups and push-up workout together as a team at the end of running. Saturday, December 7th, 2002. We practiced in full pads again this morning. It's never fun to get up early on a weekend, but it's magnified when you have to get up and go into full pads practice. One of the reasons we're practicing in full pads on a weekend is to show off for all the recruits who are here. To make the situation more utterly ridiculous, there was only one recruit here today. We all hate days like this when we're supposed to show off for the recruits. The coaches made us go harder than usual in practice just to prove to the recruits that we mean business. In the meantime, we're all so tired that we don't even care. So, not to ruin it for any current recruits or future recruits out there, but anything you see at any school has been meticulously staged just for you. It was another good practice overall, and Coach Solich spoke to us at the end again. Even with all the recent stresses, he managed to give us a really good speech. He seems much more confident now and much more in control. He's not just telling us what we need to hear like he usually does. He's telling us the way it has to be if we want to be a good team. He's telling us that hard work will get us there. He's telling us that working together in these next couple weeks will get us what we want and help us end the season in a manner that brings pride to our program. Overall, I think he raised his coaching effectiveness by about 50% in just under a week. Sunday, December 8th, 2002. We found out today that we're going to the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana. This will be the first time Nebraska has ever been to that bowl, and it will also be the first time we've ever played Mississippi. Quarterback Eli Manning and the rest of Ole Miss will give us a worthy challenge, and we are looking forward to matching up with them on the 27th. Friday, December 13th, 2002. We practiced again today in full pads. So far this week, we've practiced on Monday, Wednesday, and today, and we will go again tomorrow in the mornings. We've also had to lift 4 times this week. All combined, this is a pretty trying schedule when we have to go in full pads every practice, but add in the fact that finals are next week, and that makes it really tough. I got a call from an academic watchdog, Dennis LeBlanc, last night, and he said if I don't raise my grade in my geography class, I won't go to the bowl game. It would be very embarrassing to miss my last bowl game because of academics, especially since I was just listed as first-team All-Academic Big 12. That's not the way I want to go out, so I'm going to study very hard these next few days. Trying to fit football into the equation really complicates things. On Wednesday, as I was getting taped, one of the trainers came by with a form I had to fill out for the pro scouts. I laughed and said I wasn't going pro, but they said I had to fill it out anyway. I made some corrections, such as changing my weight from 300 to 280, and handed it in. It would be the ultimate joke if any pro team wanted me. We picked up our gifts from Adidas before practicing today. I thought that after going to the national championship game last year, and presumably making a lot of money for Adidas, they would give us some really good gifts this year. Instead, this is probably the worst assortment yet. The main thing is a leather suit/garment bag. It's very nice, but it's a very incongruous gift. Most of us don't even own a suit, and not many of us dress up too often, so this gift is lost on us. They said that it's worth close to $300, so maybe I can pawn it or something. And a new pair of shoes. Only they didn't have my size, so I just took a pair to give someone as a gift. That was it. A pretty pitiful pittance. Scott Frost, the quarterback from our 1997 championship team and current professional defensive back, is in town taking some graduate courses and has volunteered to help coach the defense. He definitely has the qualifications. He knows our system and how we practice, and he also has learned how to play defense fairly recently, so turning it around and passing on what he's learned should be very easy. Let's hope it works. No offensive coordinator has been named yet, and Coach Solich has said that he will probably call the plays during the bowl game. There's also a lot of rumors going around about the other coaches and their job security. One is that Coach Dan Young will retire soon after the season is over, and Dave Kolowski, the running backs coach, will step down as well. We have 2 weeks to see if any of this is true. Monday, December 16th, 2002. I found a nice surprise in my locker today. A framed picture of this year's Unity Council. I think it's funny because they rounded us up for this picture very quickly, and all I'm wearing is the Unity Council t-shirt and a towel. Luckily, I'm in the back row, so you can't tell. This week will be a little different from last week in that we will lift on Wednesday after practice and then have Thursday completely free. This will be a very nice break. Also, Thursday marks the start of the single-digit countdown of days until we're done. Joe Crispin and I remember talking back in two-a-days, when we were still in the 150-day mark, how nice it will be to be in the single digits. One thing I can depend on right now is that time will continue to tick by at the same rate, like it or not. Right now, I like it. Wes Cody went down with a knee injury today. It appears to be an MCL injury, which is a lot better than an ACL. This is bad news either way for Wes, who was supposed to start in his final game as offensive guard. The trainers want to bring him back for the game, but there may not be enough time. Thursday, December 19th, 2002. I found out today that I got the C that I needed in my geography class, so I will go to the bowl game. All my studying paid off, and I got a good grade on the final. I'm done with the finals now, and I'm no longer a student-athlete. Right now, I'm just an athlete. But that will all be over soon, and I will return to just being a student. I'm looking forward to the life where I can do what I want in the afternoons, as well as actually have a good job and make some decent money. Friday, December 20th, 2002. We picked up some money for the weekend today. We got $93 to cover our meals, which is a little much, but I'm not one to turn down cash. Saturday, December 21st, 2002. After meetings, I picked up my travel reimbursement money of $252, since I will be driving back with my parents instead of taking the team charter. Once again, it's hard not to take free money. Monday, December 23rd, 2002. On one of the coldest mornings we've had in a while, we met at the National Guard building by the airport at 7 o'clock. As we entered the building, we signed up for our money and picked up $100, then picked up some fruit and rolls. We then took a shuttle to the runway, where there was a plane waiting. We avoided going through the terminal because we wanted to avoid security checkpoints and save time. The flight to Shreveport was about 2 hours, and then we loaded a convoy of buses and went to our hotel, a Holiday Inn that seems to be in the middle of nowhere. We had a meeting with the officer who headed up our police escort, and he told us what we needed to know during our stay. He told us the names of some places to stay away from and landmarks to look for to know which part of the city we're in. He then told us plainly that if we're not 21, there is nothing to do for us in this city. For those who are 21, there are some casinos on the Red River and some bars and clubs around the area that sound like good places to waste some time and money. Even if we just want to stay at the hotel, there isn't much to do. The Players' Lounge is just a section of the lobby with some arcade games and a little snack bar set up. There are 3 games to choose from, along with the ping pong table, but the games are broken most of the time. I brought my PlayStation 2 to play in the room, but the television has some kind of protective thing on the cable line, and also I don't have the right converter to play on this type of television. It doesn't feel like this trip will be much fun. After lunch at the hotel, we got taped and loaded up the buses for practice. We're practicing at the bowl site, which has a field surface very similar to Memorial Stadium. It was raining as we arrived, and rained harder and harder as we prepared for practice. Coach Solich pushed back the start of practice a few minutes while we waited for the rain to clear up. We practiced in full pads, and it was pretty intense with a lot of good hitting. At the end, Coach Solich told us that Bo Pelini from the Green Bay Packers had just been signed on as the defensive coordinator and will officially fill the position after the season was over. After practice, we had to lift, only we didn't have any of our equipment here. We borrowed an assortment of weights from a local high school. It looked very pathetic, but it reflects how we have only 1/3 of the travel costs that we did for the Rose Bowl. I guess when you aren't poised to make a lot of money off a bowl game like we were for the Rose Bowl, we needed to cut costs somewhere. We just had to do a bench workout today, and then tomorrow we'll do hang clean workouts, and that'll be it for the rest of the trip. Later in the day, we went to a welcome party at the Bossier Civic Center. We picked up our bowl watches before we left the hotel as well. The Independence Bowl watches are the same fossil watches we got for the Alamo Bowl, only they have a gold plating along the links and a gold face with the bowl logo. We had a reception dinner for both teams tonight, and it was probably one of the best we've ever had. We started off with a dinner of fried catfish and some other Cajun-style foods, all very rich and fried, which seems to be the theme for the food for our trip so far. The coaches warned us before the trip began that we should watch what we eat, but all that's been available for us so far has been fried or fatty foods. There was a big screen television set up with the PlayStation 2003 NCAA football game on it, and a few players from each team were chosen beforehand to play a mock game between Nebraska and Ole Miss. Our guys were able to blow them away in the video game. After the meal and a short introduction by bowl officials, a hypnotist took over and put on a very funny show. He used players from both teams as well as some girls from the audience. Some parts of the show were a little lewd, but the guy was quick to stop the hypnotized people before they did anything too embarrassing. One of the most hilarious parts was when Jamale Phillips and Mike McLaughlin were told under hypnosis that they were friends. Really good friends. They looked at each other, smiled, hugged, and laid back on the floor on the stage. Jamale threw his massive leg over the top of the much smaller Mike, and we were all laughing hysterically when the hypnotist stopped them from going any further. After we got back to the hotel, we had the rest of the night free until bed check at 2 in the morning. I'm rooming with Andy Wingender, and we just decided to crash tonight instead of staying out late. Besides, the shuttle service for this bowl trip consists of huge tour buses. This makes for very slow trips and lots of waiting. Not exactly the best organizational scheme, especially since we're not within walking distance of anything. Tuesday, December 24th, 2002. After a late wake-up and 11 o'clock lunch, we headed out for practice. We enjoyed a nice practice in sweats with slightly better weather. This means that I have no more padded practices ever. What a relief. Andy and I went to the casinos tonight, since they seem like the only thing to do in this city. I lost $25 pretty quickly and spent the rest of the time just watching the other guys gamble. Josh Brown is the big winner so far, winning close to $1,000 playing roulette. After Andy and I got back, we met up with Scott Cothy, who was determined to find the hospitality lounge. We eventually found it, but we had to be careful. This lounge is set up just for the coaches, the staff, and their families, and is set up with TVs and a well-stocked bar with whatever you desire for free. There were a couple of people in there, but luckily for us, there were no coaches. We walked in like we had done this sort of thing before, and just helped ourselves to a few beers. One of the guys in charge came over and we introduced ourselves as graduate assistant coaches. Andy and I let Scott take over the conversation, and he made up a great story about how he was working on his master's in physics. He was pretty believable, considering how much he'd already had to drink, and was talking about how much he detested certain branches of mathematics, and once he'd found the one he liked, he followed it straight into his chosen path with physics. Andy and I were trying so hard not to laugh, but we managed to amuse ourselves with our own conversation so we didn't have to listen to Scott. Some of the video guys came by, as well as Art McWilliams, our team chef, and they all warned us not to get caught there. We just smiled and nodded, not really caring. About 20 minutes later, running backs coach Dave Gillespie and his wife walked in and asked us what we were doing there. We casually said, "Just hanging out and enjoying some low-carb beers, gotta watch our figures." Dave then replied, "You can't be drinking beer." We stood there, awkwardly, waiting in anticipation for the punchline as if he was just about to laugh it off. Instead, he continued, "Do you think I'm serious? You can't be drinking beer." We were doubly stunned by his ability to be so terse. Nearly all of his position players constantly make fun of his perpetual stammering and seemingly miraculous ability to make even the shortest sentence live forever. So, feeling very uncomfortable, we dropped our beers into the trash can and quickly left the lounge. We didn't know if we were in trouble, but we were laughing the whole way back to our rooms. Andy wasn't so jovial since he had just gotten yelled at by his coach, but Scott and I didn't care at all because we knew that whatever punishment they would give us would only last 3 days at most. Wednesday, December 25th, 2002. Another Merry Christmas spent away from the family. It's very rare that a person has the opportunity to enjoy a cold beer on a hot Christmas morning. Knowing that this is one of Homer Simpson's great loves, Andy and I made a special attempt to stash away some beer for this purpose. It was easily the highlight of our entire bowl trip. Andy, Scott, and I expected Coach Solich to say something about the incident last night in the hospitality lounge, but nothing was said. Either he didn't care, or Gillespie didn't tell him. I'm not going to complain. We picked up another $100 at lunch, and then got taped and departed for practice. Today we had our little drill at the start where we catch passes from Coach Tenneper. This was the last time to do this fun little drill, and I am proud to say that I caught all the balls that were thrown to me. The team was invited to Harrah's Casino tonight, and we enjoyed a nice buffet dinner. Nate Coulterman was Santa this year, and he really had a hard time being funny, although it was obvious he was trying. Some of the kids were even scared of him, which made me laugh. We picked up a little gift from the casino at the end of our meal, an envelope with a 30-minute phone card, 2 Shreveport postcards, and a leftover pen from a pharmaceutical convention. They could have saved themselves a lot of trouble and just given us all $1 and chips for the casino. I joined a large group of guys in the casino after the meal. I didn't want to gamble tonight because I didn't feel like losing any more money, but that didn't stop Andy Wingender. He lost $300 in 10 minutes at the roulette table. He bet on red 7 times in a row, and the ball landed on black each time. It was a statistical anomaly. He then switched to blackjack, where he recovered half of his lost money. I played a few hands eventually and was up $40 and gratefully walked away. I'm up $15 for the trip so far. It's not much, but not too many guys will be able to say that they actually won money at the casinos. Thursday, December 26, 2002. Today we suffered through yet another boring luncheon. The speeches were as bland as the food, and time seemed to stand still as we waited for this torture to end. One of the things that helped us get through it was pointing out Coach Solich's verbal idiosyncrasies. He has developed a habit of saying various catchphrases, which he's probably unaware of, and he says them so frequently that it has become an inside joke for us. In almost every speech, whether at a convention or just as a casual team setting, he says, "in terms of," "tremendousness," and "what we're all about." When the luncheon was finally over, we had our short walkthrough, and then we zipped back to the hotel. There was a dinner just for the guys, suiting up, and we later headed out to a theater to see Catch Me If You Can. This was by far the best movie we've seen all year long. A snack was waiting for us back at the hotel, and bed check was an hour later at 11 o'clock. Friday, December 27th, 2002. Nebraska 23, Ole Miss 27. This morning was pretty interesting. After meetings, Coach Tenneper had Dan Waldrop and Nick Bavendo stay so he could talk to them. Coach Tenneper said that because of Dan's weight, Nick will start the game at tackle. Dan was obviously very upset by this news. I've known Dan for a while now, and this was the most mad I've ever seen him. After a full season of starting as well as practicing the entire bowl preparation time like he was going to be the starter, it's no wonder why he was talking about quitting or transferring. Even with a 17-7 lead in the game, we couldn't pull off a win. I truly believe that all of our guys gave it their all, but something just wasn't there for us to win. If anything, I would blame it on the officials. There were many questionable calls, and at one point even confusion among the refs as to what call to make. They didn't seem to notice all the holding and illegal blocking by the Mississippi offensive linemen. They had their hands on our guys' face masks all game long. There were a lot of things that went wrong in this game, but there were a lot of good things as well. For the most part, our kicking game was very good. Josh Brown connected on 3 field goals and 2 extra points, while Kyle Larson had 3 punts downed inside the 20-yard line, 2 of them inside the 3-yard line. There was one glaring error in the kicking game, however, but we had the right intention. On one of our punts, Ole Miss guys weren't covering our lone guy to the left. Fullback Steve Krewald, who usually lines up in the position as personal protector, was filling in on the line at guard for Scott Shanley, who was too sick to play. This moved Judd Davies to personal protector, and Judd had never practiced the fake punt before, and we were perfectly set up for it. He saw the opportunity for the fake and took it, but threw the ball short and gave Ole Miss good field position and another score. Just to quickly explain, the personal protector is a guy who's lined up just a couple yards back from the center and a little offset, and he calls out what defensive formation the defense is in, so we know how to block. And mostly it's for me to know if I should block to the left or the right as the center. Here's a little side note about this game. My good friend, fullback Andy Wingender, was talking to Judd Davies during this game about his being used in the punt team, and just mentioned hypothetically that it'd be cool to watch out for our guys being uncovered on the sides so he could do that fake punt pass. Well, this is basically the catalyst for Judd noticing that one of our guys was totally uncovered and giving him the opportunity to make that fake punt call. I think one of the big reasons that he didn't make such a good throw, and I know Judd is a good athlete and he is a very well-rounded guy, and he definitely can make the pass if he wanted to, but he didn't take his gloves off for when he made the pass. And if you've ever experienced these, the gloves that running backs wear, they're pretty sticky, meant to hold onto the ball a lot better so they don't get ripped out. And when you try to throw a ball accurately with a sticky glove, it's not going to work out too well. And I think that's what happened, and it didn't work out too well for us. Ole Miss had a much more consistent offense with Eli Manning at the helm. We were able to accumulate only minimal yardage and ended our season with 3 straight losses and a 7-7 record, the worst season in over 40 years. I finished my 5 years with a record of 49-16. I finished my senior year by taking every extra point snap and field goal snap. I finished my senior year by being perfect in my last game. I finished with no major injuries and no surgeries. I finished. I didn't quit. 2002 end of the year summary. A very disappointing year, but it was hard to avoid. The coaches seemed to have decreased power, as there was no stern authority figure or even a revered workaholic among them. The players grew disenfranchised with a system that only played a top quarter of the players, while the others were reduced to practicing away all their time and energy. Very few people, athletes, or staff were overly optimistic throughout the season. All of the injuries, suspensions, desertions, and expulsions had an effect on more than just the immediate players. I'm very proud to have played in every game of my senior year. I'm very proud to have earned an athletic letter. I'm very proud that I had the perseverance to get through all of the seemingly endless hard work and make it to this point. I can't wait to see what's next. One last day. Sunday, January 12th, 2003. Coaches Tenniper and Young announced their retirement today. Tenniper cited medical reasons, and Young simply said he wanted to spend more time with his wife traveling and playing golf. The coaches told us linemen privately in their meeting room first, and then there was a media conference where it was obvious the reporters were either taken off guard by this or entirely expected it because they didn't ask very many questions. Now, I hold a certain distinction of being the last group of players to be fully coached by Tenniper and the first group to be fully head coached by Solich. Later on, directly from their own mouths, I learned that they were forced to retire by Solich. They were very gracious in this change, but obviously saddened. Yet Solich had to do something to try to keep his job. Again, it was too little, too late. This is the afterword for the book. I compiled a nice list of accomplishments during my 5 years. I earned my letter for the playing time during my senior season. I'm officially listed as a letterman at the University of Nebraska for football, and that's something that nobody can take away from me. I'm also in a video game, NCAA 2003 by EA Sports. I graduated in May 2004 with a degree in social science. I earned a Big 12 Commissioner's Honor Roll Award nearly every semester while in school. I was honored with being on the first team Big 12 All-Academic team. I was named Mentor of the Year at the middle school level for the Teammates Mentoring Program. I was named to the Brooke Behringer Citizenship Team and participated in several public engagements. I was an active member of the Unity Council. Most importantly, out of the 41 walk-ons that entered this program in 1998, only a quarter of them finished out their career at Nebraska, and I can proudly say that I am one of them. There are many things I'll never forget. I'll never forget the thrill of running onto the field for a home game. I'll never forget the pride of doing my job well and helping win a major college game. Hopefully, someday I'll forget the fear of being late for lifting and practices and waking up because of football-related nightmares. My one main wish about my college years is that I would have dedicated more time and energy to searching for the best major for me. I hastily picked teaching as my degree field and eventually realized that I didn't want to do that, but by then it was too late to change. I guess I could have partied less as well, but it was college. I received a lot of respect when people learned that I was a Husker, and everyone wants to know what it was like. They always ask about the coaching changes. They ask what went wrong. How could we lose so many games, what certain guys are like, and so on. Hopefully this book does it all. Since I left, Frank Solich and the rest of his staff were replaced, and Bill Callahan from the Oakland Raiders assumed the head coaching role. In hindsight, I was able to capture the end of a very long and very exciting era of college football. The Nebraska teams that ruled the gridiron from the 1960s to the 90s have faded into the past, and now there are new coaches, new plays, a constantly remodeled stadium, and a constantly rising level of expectations. This game was big when I was playing, but it's so much bigger now, and the stakes keep rising. I have a lot of great memories of my time at Nebraska. I made a lot of good friends, took great classes, and I had a lot of fun. I was also privileged to experience in great depth what it's like to be a Husker, something that thousands of people across this state would gladly sacrifice many things for. It was a fantastic experience, but I'm glad it's over. If this book seems too negative, I apologize, and I mean no disrespect to the program, the coaches, the players, or the fans. But perhaps if I had reason to write a more positive reflection, then the overhaul of this program probably would not have been necessary. It's impossible to tell what exactly caused the deterioration of the program, but I think I'm qualified to make a few suggestions. For starters, I came in with one of the biggest classes of freshmen ever. Coach Solich probably overextended himself in his first year at the helm by grabbing all the talent that was interested in the program. This created a huge surplus of guys who would never see playing time, who were treated by the coaches like they were disposable, and were stuck on the scout team forever. There was a very high attrition rate, especially among the walk-ons. Only about 1/4 of the walk-ons I came in with finished their career on the field at Nebraska. Most of those who left did so to find a program in which they could get some playing time, and I have to respect that. Still, with too many guys at each position, it created a division between the starters and those at the bottom of the totem pole. Some took it as a sign to work harder, others took it as a chance to trail along in the shadows of the program and still reap the rewards. I believe the latter attitude caused the program's ultimate downfall. There were just too many guys who just wanted to slide through. They knew they had no chance of playing, but it was still better than not being on the team. Apathy is a poisonous attitude, and it's hard to extinguish because even the starters get resentful and envious when they see the other guys not working hard. It's a lot easier to fit in the pack than to try to lead it. The coaches also failed horribly at recruiting top prospects to come to Nebraska. In Osborne's era, there were some decent recruiting classes, but most of them were pretty average. Then those coaches would develop those young athletes along with the walk-ons and build a great team by the time they were juniors and seniors. I guess the lack of high-level recruits never raised a flag because of this legacy, but I think it's clear now that a strong program needs strong recruiting. The coaches also failed at getting the most out of their players. In the latter years, there was no coach who I could truly say was an inspirational figure for the whole team. Coaches Ron Brown and Turner Gill would have made terrific people to motivate the whole team. However, most of their influence was just imparted on their positional players, since they had very little interaction with the team as a whole at any point. On a similar note, there were several coaches who were unable to properly train their players. Some were so old that they couldn't demonstrate what they were looking for, and sadly, we even had a coach or two who were just filling in token spots, who didn't have a clue what they were doing or how to do it. Because of these failings among the coaches, many players had little or no motivation. We knew we had to play football, but we weren't really sure what we were playing for all the time. Our first listed goal for each season was win the national championship. In my mind, that's not a goal that should have been placed first. When this goal is foremost in your mind, the moment you start showing any weakness in a game created a lot of fear and doubt, making you think that the whole season was lost and that you have nothing else to play for. As for Frank Solich himself, I don't think it's appropriate to give him all the credit or the blame for his 6 years as head coach. For the first 4 years, he was playing the athletes that Osborne left behind. It wasn't until his 5th or 6th year that he was playing with a team that he built himself. The speculation of what he could have done to turn the program around will never end, but I think it's best to move on. Leadership is one of those intangibles that's so important on the football field. A head coach needs to be the most visible person, but also the most confident and assuring. Coach Solich had his title of head coach, but he looked like he was trying to steer a ship without a rudder. He seemed like he wasn't sure if what he was doing will work, but he was going to keep trying and make everyone else on the boat feel like everything was all right as they drifted further into the unknown. The leadership of the players was a big part of the demise as well. We picked our own captains, and they were always some of the best athletes. However, more often than not, they were too quiet. They tried to lead by example, and were not used to getting in someone's face and motivating them. Yet, that was the kind of leader we needed. Occasionally, we had the leader that would get in your face, but they didn't demonstrate the desired attitude or actions themselves, so they are seen as hypocrites. The best example of this is our starting center for my last years. He was a good athlete and did well for us, but he was too much of a slacker to be taken seriously. Upon further review of his play, it was seen that he consistently made bad blocks and bad choices on the field, but the coaches were limited in the supply of game-ready centers. And yes, I'm aware of the personal irony. There were even players whose abrasive attitudes and destructive demeanor crippled several attempts by others to take a leadership role. The best example of this is an offensive lineman who I refused to give more press. He bullied his way around the team so much that very few people liked him, but everyone knew to respect his wishes or face his wrath. More often than not, he would just be mean for the fun of it. A young leader wishing to make his ability known would get made fun of by him until they gave up. I guess he wanted everyone to be as miserable as him. The structure of the athletic department even contributed to the turmoil. The departure of the nutrition staff created a void in a crucial area that had been one of the key components of our training. I have no doubt that the health of our team slipped quite a bit when there was no nutrition staff to regulate our players' intake of food. The strength and conditioning program also took a major hit during the later years. Much of the staff moved on to better jobs all around at the same time. With decreased numbers and a few fresh faces, the leadership of the strength and conditioning staff was severely hampered, sometimes leaving the athletes personally accountable for their workouts. We worked hard all the time, but if we had a chance to save some time and energy, we certainly took it, even at the expense of our training. Internal strife between the strength coaches boiled over into their work with us. Differences of opinion between Coach Solich and our athletic director about the breadth of our nutrition program severely delayed its implementation. Everything from the top down eventually affected the players and their game day attitudes. I think the team is now back on track to be a dominating force because they're fixing the attitude on the team. They are now limiting the number of walk-ons, and they are shrinking the team to make practices more manageable, so the starters don't have to practice against a less than qualified scout team all the time. The depth of positions is much less, giving more guys a chance to get some playing time, so they should be ready. In my first year out of football, I dropped my weight to 215 pounds and have since leveled off at 230. Most of the guys I played with hardly recognize me now. A lot of guys go the other direction with their weight because they eat the same and don't work out as much. I lost the weight mostly by dedicating myself to a rigorous and constant cardiovascular exercise routine. Staying away from the training table has certainly helped as well. Although taking the weight off wasn't nearly as hard as putting it on in the first place. I can't describe how good it feels to not weigh 300 pounds anymore, but I have to admit that I miss the intimidated looks most people gave me. Now I just stick out of a crowd because I'm tall, not massive. After 11 years of playing full-contact football from middle school to the elite college ranks, I hung up my cleats. I was able to amass quite a collection of memorabilia: my helmet, most of my jerseys, my senior year's game pants with pads, game socks, and a ton of gym bags, warm-ups, t-shirts, shorts, shoes, programs, ticket stubs, media guides, pictures, plaques, and awards. It's a part of my life that I won't soon forget, but I'm glad it's over. Now I can strive for bigger and better things. I think Lou Holtz said it best. If what you did yesterday seems big, you haven't done anything today. The following is from Andrew Wingender, my fullback friend and fellow walk-on, whose senior year in 2003 was also Solich's last year as head coach before he was fired and a whole new set of coaches were brought in. I asked him to recap his last year of Solich, and this is what he said. I get mad every time I hear that Frank was fired after a 9-win season. Sure, after his 9th win he got fired, but his season, didn't end there. We were galvanized by what happened to Coach Solich. The coaches and players alike came together to do what was most important right then and there: win the Alamo Bowl. I won't deny that we threw a tantrum. The coaches held themselves well, but I know that they were concerned. They moved their families, left jobs, and came to Nebraska for Frank Solich and his vision for our future. When Frank was fired, they knew to get their resumes in order. But men of character don't abandon the things they believe in. I can safely say that the coaches believed in making the Huskers great, both the team and the players. We believed in them too. If you're wondering how that worked out, 17-3 victory over Michigan State in the Alamo Bowl. Not too shabby. But let me start at the beginning. When the 2002 season ended at the University of Nebraska, we were faced with many changes. The defensive staff was completely changed, and the offensive staff was reorganized to a great extent. What was asked of us players was to take a leap of faith. We had to evolve to become a competitive team in the world of college football. What I'm most proud of is the way we bought into the new system presented to us. Defensively, the players responded greatly. Defensive coordinator Bo Pelini's greatest strength was that he let everyone know their role. Each player had a job. Sometimes that meant players had to sacrifice their own accomplishments so others could get in position to make the play. It worked. We had a #1 defense in the country for most of the year. Players like Barrett Ruud, Josh Bullocks, and others thrived under the system. Offensively, we had to move from the option offense. No other way to say it. Not that it was a broken system, but we couldn't outrace defenses around the end. We couldn't shove the ball down defenses' throats, and we couldn't pass well enough to get 8 people out of the box. Too many jerseys and too little space. That's a simple explanation. But we didn't abandon who we were. Nebraska was a running team, and we had recruited guys for that sole purpose. My friends Judd Davies, Josh Davis, Corey Ross, and Jamal Lord had been built for one reason, to run sprint options and isolation plays. How do you ask them to do something else? It's easy to criticize guys, and plenty of people were unfairly criticized. But what few people saw was how smart the coaches really were. Offensive coordinator Barney Cotton didn't ask us to reinvent the wheel. He wanted us to improve on our weaknesses. For the first time in my career, we had a passing coordinator, my position coach Tim Albin, and the same thing happened for our offense and our defense. We understood the strategy. Here is the greatest compliment that I can give Coach Solich. He had to change what we did, not who we were. Football's as simple as blocking and tackling. I'm always amused when I see teams try to run the most complex schemes they can to confuse the offense or defense. I think that means they can't block or tackle well enough to win. Frank hired coaches with ties to the university, men who knew why we cared so much about football in the state. And a coach who took control of his staff and gave away control of his offense got fired. 10-win seasons are not common. They aren't championship quality, but by no means are they mediocre. Let me take a moment to admit that my role in these events is minor. I would never lie and say that I was a great football player. I was good enough to get in the door and good enough to never get kicked out. But my 2 carries for 4 yards will not be remembered by anyone but myself and my family. The reason I put up with all the difficulties and constraints that football put on me was simple. I loved those guys. I am proud to call people like David Kolowski my friend. Each one of them is my brother in a very real sense, and I will always love them. Thank you to everyone who has supported us through good and bad. I hope you all enjoyed the ride as much as I did. Andrew Wingender, February 2006. I'd also like to say thank you to the entire state of Nebraska. There are hundreds of thousands of fans who make this state and this team what it is. Thanks to the coaches and players that worked with all the behind-the-scenes people to keep everything together. I'd like to personally thank several people. A deep and sincere thank you go to Joe Vocek, Dan McLaughlin, Rick Hook, Mike Janis, all of my teachers in the Millwood Public Schools, and all the coaches that had the pleasure and or pain of coaching me, all of my fellow players and opponents, Chad Stanley, Nancy Evans, Bill Cornell, James Tansey, Andrew Wingender, Eric Crouch, Dennis LeBlanc, Keith Zimmer, Brian Nelson, Aaron Patch, Joel Hendrickson, Judy K., Dave K., Marshall Poole, Gene Poole, Helen Poole, Jocelyn Pierce, Brandon Pierce, Jason Kolowski, Stacy Marcus, Rick Kolowski, Bonnie Kolowski, Edie Gunn, Craig Holman, Michael Callahan, Zach Biting, Brent Reno, Lisa Pelto, all of my family and friends who I'm failed to mention, and, most importantly, thank you to my wife Lauren. This book is for all of you. Go Huskers! Well, that's all for Diary of a Husker. Hope you enjoyed it. I do want to make a quick note that this audio version in particular is dedicated to our future child. Lauren and I are going to be having a baby in March. Don't know what we're having yet. We're keeping that a secret, and we are really excited. So this book is for you. And I also want to encourage you to go to huskerstories.com again. I've got lots of extras about the book on there. I've got lots of documents and a lot more pictures as well. And you can see things like letters from the coaches, recruiting letters. I've even got an actual chunk of our playbook from 2001 put up on there. And that's the same offense that took us to the national championship game with Eric Crouch leading us all the way. And you can actually see one of our most popular plays, or one of the most widely used plays that we had in the day, one of our option plays, and kind of see for yourself how it's diagrammed out against the different defenses and get an idea of basically how we ran our offense. So It'll give you a really good idea of what was going on back at the time for the Huskers during my time there, and you can get a much better grasp of the history of this time period, and hopefully understand all that was going on and all that transpired to get us to where we are today. So I hope to see you around at some games in the future, as well as some book signings and whatever else we got going on. And until then, take care and go Big Red.